I came home for a short fall break, expecting quiet nights and family dinners. Instead, one ordinary evening changed everything. His eyes lingered on me a heartbeat too long, and the room seemed to hold its breath. A single glance, a brief touch, and I knew there was no way back to the life I'd left behind. I came home 5 days before Halloween, suitcase wheels whispering on the driveway, and my dad's best friend, James Whittaker, opened the door like he'd been waiting. Dusty sweatshirt, tired grin, eyes that held too long. I was 21. Back on fall break, he was the man who taught me to change a tire and shake a hand and mean it. "Your dad's on a site visit," he said. "He asked me to help with decorations." "Right," I said, pretending my chest hadn't tightened. In Julie, head clapped my shoulder and told me to go make a life. I'd thought about that touch more than I should have. In the garage, bins of orange and black sat open. "Porch first," he said, "then windows. Your dad wants the windows perfect." We worked quiet lime handing hooks and twine, him on the ladder. Down the street kids practiced costumes. I kept stealing glances, the line of his jaw, the scar at his temple, the ring that flashed when he turned a screw. He had a family, pictures, a dog, a wife who sent lemon bars every Christmas, boundaries I was supposed to honor. "College treating you?" he asked. "It's loud," I said. "I miss the quiet." He looked down. "Quiet isn't always peace." I fought with a string of lights that wouldn't untangle. He climbed down, close enough that I felt the warmth of his shoulder through his sweatshirt. His breath touched my cheek when he took the lights. Everything in me leaned forward without moving. "I shouldn't be here," he said softly. "You're on my porch," I said. He smiled. "That's not what I meant." Inside, the attic hatch stuck. He braced it, reached up the hem of his sweatshirt, lifted just enough to show a strip of skin. I set the ladder. He climbed. The house went quiet, except for the click of shoes on aluminum and my pulse in my ears. "Careful," I said. "Always." The ladder slid a fraction, scraping. I grabbed the side. He dropped the bin. It thudded by my shoulder, fake bones and plastic gravestones skittering across the floor. He came down fast, hands catching my shoulders, palms hot through my shirt. "You okay?" "Fine," I said, though my heart was leaving my body. His hand stayed. A thumb rested against my collarbone. The hallway light flickered and steadied. We didn't move. "James," I said. He exhaled. I circled the block twice before knocking. He said, "I told myself I'd drop the box and go. Why? Because every time I see you, Julie crawls back and sits in my head. The backyard after the fireworks, she's hug a second too long. Me not pulling a wear-a-blade like a loop." "You have a family," I said. Plea and accusation at once. "I know." His hand slid not far, just enough to stop on my ribs. "I know." Outside, a rake scraped. Inside, we had breath and heartbeat, and a choice I wasn't ready to name. "My father's best friend," the thought cut sharp. He stepped back an inch. "This is on me," he said. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize if you don't mean it." He met my eyes. "I don't." Something in me snapped clean, like a tight line cut. The careful version of me's son, the student, the good kid slipped, and the person who had been awake since Julie stood up. I didn't move toward him. The air moved for us. His forehead touched mine. Not a kiss. Not a mistake. Just contact that agreed to be real. I felt the warmth through his shirt when his chest met mine, the beat of him against the beat of me, and I hated how much I wanted it, even as I wanted it more. His phone rang, loud, ordinary, a ringtone I'd heard at cookouts. He flinched, answered. "Hey," he said, voice switching to casual. "Yeah, I'm at Mike's, helping with decorations. I'll be back before dinner." His eyes went careful in the way that meant his wife. He stepped outside. I stood amid bones and a fallen gravestone that read RIP, and realized the worst part waste. That head almost crossed a line. I already had. Inside, I decrossed it and planted a flag. He came back pale. "I should go," he said. "I'll finish the windows tomorrow." At the door he stopped. "If you asked me to," he said, "I would leave my house tonight. I would walk out and not look back." He swallowed. "I haven't. I know what that would do, but I can't pretend I wouldn't." He opened the door, October air slipping in cold. "I'll text before I come by tomorrow," he said, and left. I stood there long after the porch light timed out. The house clicked and settled. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. "I'm sorry. I meant everything." I didn't answer. I set the gravestone back in its stand. My hands were steady, which scared me. 2 kids in capes ran past outside, shouting, ready or not, like a dare. I pressed my palm to my chest and understood what had broken Wace, and something tape could fix. It was the idea that I could tell myself no and have my body listen. I showered too hot, tried to steam away a scent that was probably memory. In the mirror, my face looked older in a way that wasn't age. In bed, the glow. In the dark stars I'd never peeled off still made a fake sky. I tried to imagine tomorrow if he hadn't said any of it. I couldn't. The line had moved, and I had moved with it. Before sleep, I pictured a ladder that wouldn't steady, a porch light that flickered, and a hand on my ribs making everything both right and wrong. In the picture, I told him not to leave his family. In the picture, he did anyway. I woke before dawn with October in my mouth, and knew Halloween was only one night for costumes. We had already taken ours off. I woke to my dad's truck in the driveway, and a headache like I'd argued with myself all night. Coffee steamed the porch already looked perfect. Either James had returned before dawn or had done it at first light. Had left fingerprints I could feel but not see. Dad stomped in, boots shedding mud. Morning college, he said, clapping my shoulder. Whitaker's a machine. House looks great. I swallowed. Yeah. He rattled off plans for the neighborhood nightuli, candy, fog machine. If James' wife doesn't kill him for smoking ribs, he joked. I nodded at the counter. When he left again, the quiet folded around me. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Im outside. Only if you want help with the attic. I stood behind the blinds and watched him on the sidewalk, hands in pockets. He glanced up once, like he could feel the stare. Me, 5 minutes. I cleaned the hall like preparation. The attic hatch stuck. He stepped in with a paper bag. Lemon bars, he said, from my house. We can't pretend they're for your dad. We're already pretending a lot, I said. Then let's at least pick the lies that don't break anything. We dragged the ladder under the hatch like accomplices. He didn't touch me. The room changed anyway. I steadied the ladder. He climbed. What are the rules? I asked. He looked down. You tell me. I broke mine last night. I don't want to wreck a house I didn't build. He nodded. Then we don't kick walls, and we don't lie to your dad in ways that matter. Candy, level lies only, I said, passing a bin. Exactly. His shirt brushed my knuckles. The tiny contact felt bigger than it was. He felt it too. His breath hitched and kept going like a car rolling through a stop sign on an empty street. On his break, he leaned against the wall. I told my wife I'd be late, he said. Chilly day at school. Does she know you're here? She knows I help your dad, he said. She does know him counting the boards of your hallway to slow my heart. I wanted to be cruel and ask if he counted at home. I didn't. You said last night I meant it, he said. And I hate that I meant it. We talked about pumpkins. The kid who took 3 candies for his invisible twin, how to anchor the fake gravestone so it wouldn't fall again. We wound an extension cord together, hands moving in a mirror. The door opened. My dad's voice carried in. You two moving in up there. His boots thunked under the ladder. James straightened. Attic's a hazard, Mike, he said, sliding into friend mode. You should sue your builder. We ate in the kitchen 3 plates and lemon bars that became everyone's. Watching them talk made me sick to imagine being what cracked it. James met my glance once, then looked away and told a story about a stubborn fence post. After lunch, Dad went to pick up paint. Water ran while James washed his hands, fingers under the stream like they needed time. Tonight, he said, not a question. Neighborhood watch, I said. He'll be home by 8. I can bring fog fluid, he said, a bad cover. 9. Text me, I'll knock, he said. If you don't open, I'll go. When he left, the house felt too big. I cleaned to keep from thinking. Online I checked the definition of fall break. 4 days. It felt cruel to call it that. At 8:15 my phone lit. Outside. Last time I'll do this if you say the word. Me. Give me a minute. I stood at the door and thought about boundaries like caution tape in wind. Then I unlatched. He stepped in with the fog machine under his arm. Rules, he said, quiet. Say them. No lies that break bridges, I said. No wrecked houses. And if it hurts, we stop. Even if stopping hurts more. He nodded. We stood there, talking to keep from saying the loud thing. He took 1 step. I did too. When he reached, he didn't grab. He paused like permission had a weight to it. When I leaned in, his forehead met mine again. Not a kiss or breath shared in a space small as a coin. My hand found the seam of his shirt. Heat there, ribs there, pulse there. He shivered and laughed at himself. God, he said, breath on my mouth. I feel 17. I don't, I said. I feel like I'm about to do something I can't undo. We already did, he said, honest and soft. We told the truth. The fog machine coughed from the corner like the house had a sense of humor. We laughed. The sound loosened the wire around my chest. He touched the back of my neck, not possessive, not timid, just present. I let my head tip until our noses brushed, until the world narrowed to breath and the steadying press of his palm. Then he stepped away. I have to go, he said. If I stay, I don't. That a joke, no. It's me trying to be the man your dad thinks I am. He picked up the fog machine. At the door, he looked back like the hallway might erase him if he blinked too long. Tomorrow, he said. Daytime, safer, tomorrow, I echoed. It sounded like a promise and an injury. After he left, I locked the door and leaned my forehead against the wood where his had almost been. I wrote the rules on a scrap of paper and taped them inside the hall closet like a blueprint. Near midnight, a final text glowed. I don't know how to be brave without being cruel. Me, maybe brave as calling it what it is. He didn't answer. In the dark, my heart took its time settling. When it finally did, I knew the first contact waist, forehead, or hand. It was us building language for something that could ruin us if we didn't. The next morning tasted like a dare. I brewed coffee so strong it burned, trying to mask the nervous heat that lived behind my ribs. Dad left early to help a neighbor hang lights. I had the house and a whole day of rules I wasn't sure I could follow. James texted mid-morning, need an extra set of hands at the shed. Quick fix before the storm. I stared at the words until they blurred. Storm or no storm, I knew what he meant, a reason. The walk to his place was only 5 minutes, but each step carried a weight. His house looked like every other on the block-white siding, red door, family car in the driveway. The normalcy felt almost cruel. He opened before I knocked. Thanks for coming, he said, voice low. His hair was damp, like head rushed to shower. Shed's this way. Inside the yard, the October air smelled of wet leaves and something warmer, said from the woodpile, maybe. He showed me a loose hinge, though it barely wobbled. Just needs steadying, he said, handing me a screwdriver. We worked in silence until the breeze shifted and his sleeve brushed mine. A small thing, but it caught like a hook. You didn't sleep either, he said finally. No, I admitted. Kept thinking about everything. He exhaled. I told myself to stay away, and yet, I said, and yet, he echoed. He leaned back against the shed wall, arms crossed. I keep trying to picture a version of this where no one gets hurt. I set the screwdriver down. I tried too. It doesn't exist. He looked at me then steady, unguarded. I'm not asking for easy, he said. I'm asking if we stop before we start. The distance between us felt measured in heartbeats. I stepped closer until the cedar smell filled everything. Tell me to leave, I said. He didn't. His hand lifted, stopped midair, then rested lightly on my upper arm. Warmth flooded through the fabric, a quiet jolt that felt louder than any word. You're shaking, he whispered. So are you. His thumb traced a slow line down to my wrist, the movement deliberate, careful. We can't stay in this shed all day, he said, but he didn't move. I reached for the same screwdriver, our fingers brushing, holding longer than necessary. Electricity. Breath quickened. I keep seeing the look on your dad's face if he knew, James said. Me too, I answered. It doesn't stop me. For a long moment neither of us spoke. The neighborhood sounds distant laughter. A door slammed into a single hum. I could feel his pulse through the light grip on my wrist. Each beat a question. Finally he stepped back, dragging air between us. I promised myself promises can change, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. He studied me, jaw tight. Then he let his hand fall, not in defeat but in something like surrender. Tonight, he said, almost a plea. Your place, just to talk, nothing more if you don't want it. I nodded before I thought. 9, he repeated, eyes holding mine until it hurt. I left the yard with the taste of cedar and a tremor in my chest that had nothing to do with the coming storm. Every step home replayed the warmth of his hand on my skin, the way the world had gone quiet when he said tonight. That evening I stood in the doorway of my own house, counting minutes. Rain tapped the windows, a slow drum. When the clock struck 9, a soft knock followed, exactly once, like a secret only we shared. The knock at 9 was soft, but it rattled every nerve I owned. I opened the door before the second tap. James stood there, rain on his jacket, hair damp enough to curl at the edges. Your dad, he asked quietly. At a late meeting, I said. He texted, might stay out. He stepped in, carrying the smell of wet leaves and cold air. I locked the door without thinking. We talk, he said, voice firm, only talk. I nodded, though both of us knew words would be dangerous. We sat on the couch, the room lit only by the hallway lamp. He rubbed his palms on his jeans like friction could burn away the tension. You've been in my head all day, he admitted. That isn't fair to anyone. It's not fair to me either, I said. I keep replaying the look on my wife's face if she ever found out. He stared at the carpet. She trusts me, and I keep seeing my dad, I said, the words scraping out. If he knew, he'd never forgive either of us. He turned toward me, eyes dark. Then why are we here? I didn't have an answer. The silence stretched until it felt like a third person in the room. Finally he spoke. I told her I had to help a friend with a storm leak. He winced. A small lie, big enough to choke on. Something inside me recoiled. You lied to her to be here. He flinched, as if I'd slapped him. You think I don't hate myself for it? That's not what I started. But he cut me off. I should leave, he said, standing too fast. No, I said, grabbing his sleeve. The fabric was cold and slick from the rain. Don't just walk out. He looked at my hand, then at me. This is exactly the moment where a good man leaves. Then maybe I'm not good either, I said. My voice cracked on the last word. His shoulders sagged. I promised you rules. I'm breaking all of them. Maybe the rules were broken the second you knocked, I said. He sat again, elbows on knees. I told myself I could manage the storm, but it's bigger than I thought. I studied him thighs, man, who built fences for neighbors and coached little league, now unraveling in my living room. Do you love her? I asked. He hesitated. I care for her. We have a life, kids, history. That's not the question. He met my eyes, and for a heartbeat the truth was there, raw and unsheltered. Not the way I should, he said. Not like this. The words punched the air out of me. I moved closer without meaning to. Our knees touched. This is wrong, he whispered, but he didn't pull away. Tell me to stop. I can't, I said. His hand found mine, fingers threading slow and deliberate. Warmth spread through me, a quiet fire I couldn't name. Then sharp, sudden the front door handle turned. We froze. Keys jingled. My father's voice called, Hey, you still up? Panic ripped through me. Jim's eyes went wide. He let go of my hand like it burned. I bolted upright. You're just watching a movie. Dad stepped inside, shaking off rain. Oh, James, didn't know you were here. Storm check, James said smoothly, standing with a practiced grin. Leak in the shed. Thought I'd warn you. Dad glanced between us. Suspicion flickering but fading under the weight of trust. You two and your projects, he said, setting his keys down. Want a beer? James shook his head, reins picking up. I should head back. You sure? Yeah, early start tomorrow. He clapped Dad's shoulder and moved toward the door. Good night, Mike. Their easy familiarity was a blade. I followed him to the porch, heart hammering. Outside, rain slicked the steps. He leaned close, voice barely a breath. This can't keep happening, he said. For your sake, for everyone's. You're just going to vanish, I whispered. His jaw tightened. If I don't, I ruin more than my own life. He touched my cheek once, quick and trembling, then disappeared into the storm before I could answer. I stood in the rain until the cold soaked through my shirt. The echo of his touch, a brand I couldn't wash away. Inside, Dad called for towels, his voice warm and ordinary. Upstairs, I stared at my reflection, water dripping from my hair, and felt something inside me split. We had crossed the line, then been yanked back, and the gap between those moments was a wound that wouldn't close. I didn't see James for 3 days. 3 days of pacing a house that suddenly felt too small, of answering my dad's easy questions with half words, of deleting texts I wanted to send. Rain gave way to a pale autumn sun, but nothing inside me cleared. On the 4th night, my phone lit up. I need to see you tonight. Just talk, please. My thumb hovered over the screen. Please was a word with gravity. Me where? Old train depot. Midnight. No one goes there. The depot was a skeleton of brick and rusted rails at the edge of town. I knew it from childhood dare-chanted stories and broken windows. My pulse kicked as I biked through the quiet streets. He was there already, leaning against a pillar, hood up. The dim security light caught the worry in his eyes. You came, he said. You asked, I answered, breathless from the ride. He stepped closer, raincoat whispering. I couldn't stay away, but there's something you need to know before anything. His voice cracked, and I saw the weight he carried. My wife found a message, he said. Not from you. A work text I forgot to delete. She thinks I'm distracted. She's not wrong. She's suspicious now. Fear punched through me. Does she know about us? No, but she's watching, and your dad called me today. Said you've been quiet. He's worried. I can feel the ground shifting. The depot wind whistled through broken panes. I wrapped my jacket tighter. Then why bring me here? Because I can't leave it like that night, he said. I needed to see you, even if it's the last time. His hand lifted, hesitant, then rested against the back of my neck. Warmth surged, the world narrowing to the press of his palm. I should tell you to walk away, he whispered. But I can't, not when he stopped himself. The sound of footsteps cut through the dark. We turned. A flashlight beam sliced the shadows. Hey, a voice barked, security guard. James dropped his hand, grabbed mine, and pulled me behind a pillar. My heart thundered loud enough to give us away. The guard's light swept past. Anyone here? James held his breath. I felt it against my cheek. The guard lingered, muttered, and moved off, the beam fading like a warning. When the silence returned, we didn't move right away. His forehead touched mine, a quiet tremor between us. "That's what this is," he said finally, voice low. "A risk every second." I exhaled. "Then tell me to end it." He searched my face. "I want to, but I want Lee every time I'm near you. The world makes sense." My chest ached with something I didn't want to name. "So we keep pretending." "No," he said. "We stay alive. We stay careful. We figure out if this is worth breaking everything for." We stood in the ghost of the depot, the threat still hanging in the air like smoke. Outside, a train horn moaned far away, long and low, as if echoing a decision neither of us had the courage to make. When he finally walked me to my bike, he caught my wrist, thumb tracing the same quiet line as before. "I can't promise you forever," he said, "but I can promise I won't disappear without telling you why." I rode home through the sleeping town, the night colder, sharper. The danger had changed shape. It wasn't just discovery and amour. It was the truth between us, heavy and alive, waiting to be named. Halloween arrived like a drum roll. By late afternoon, our street pulsed with plastic masks and capes, porch lights blinking in a rhythm that felt like a countdown. Dad stirred chili in a sweatshirt with our old team logo. He asked if I could keep the fog machine steady near the walkway. I said yes because it was easier than speaking. At dusk, James appeared with a plastic tub of candy and the calm he wore when doing impossible things, fixing a broken post with 2 nails, holding a collapsing conversation with 1 joke. He and Dad fell into their old choreography, cords, chairs, extension strips. I floated around them like a ghost no one could see. When the first wave of kids surged, it was almost normal. Laughter, thank you, the shriek of the fogger when too much liquid pooled. James brushed my shoulder once by accident. We didn't look at each other. We didn't have to. The house vibrated with everything we weren't saying. Midway through the rush, my phone buzzed. "Unknown at your place. Need to pick up the pan I lent your dad." His wife? The message was ordinary enough to hide blades. I showed it to James, keeping the phone low. Color drained from his face. "I'll go meet her," he said, already moving. "Keep your dad outside." I stalled Dad with refills and a story about a kid dressed as a stop sign trying to direct traffic. James disappeared inside. The minutes stretched taut. The candy bowl emptied and refilled. The fog machine coughed and hissed. I could taste the metal of waiting. Then the front door opened. She stepped out with the borrowed pan in a tote and a smile shaped like apology. She was smaller than I remembered from cookouts, hair tucked under a knit hat, eyes quick and precise. She hugged my dad. They traded neighbor words, work, school, schedules. When her gaze slid past him and landed on me, it stayed a fraction too long. "Hi," she said. "Back from college. Fall break," I said, and hated how my voice thinned. "Good to see you." She looked at James then. That practiced wife scan, where has he been? What's on his shirt? What's under the words? Something shifted in her expression. Not suspicion exactly, recognition, maybe, of a space newly occupied. "I'll let you men get back to it," she said lightly. "Happy Halloween," she left with a wave. James didn't breathe until her car turned the corner. Dad leaned in. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," James said. "Pan retrieval mission accomplished. We survived the candy crush." The neighborhood thinned. The air began to sting with real cold. Dad went inside to take a call from a supplier and never came back out. The way he talked said it would be a while. The street slowed to a hush. Last stragglers, late teens daring themselves into one more block. On the porch, under the soft buzz of the light, the two of us stood with plastic fangs and empty wrappers at our feet. My hands found the rail, his found his pockets. The fog rolled low, turning the grass into a lake. "Come with me," he said suddenly. His voice was quiet, but had the shape of a shout. "Right now, I'll tell her tonight. I'll tell your dad tomorrow. I can't breathe like this." The word tonight detonated behind my ribs. "You're serious?" "I am," he said, and when he met my eyes it was like stepping into a room with no ceiling. I am so tired of asking for air in a house full of windows. I want to say it out loud where it can't take it back. "Say what?" I said, making him do the hard thing. He swallowed that "I love you." The porch didn't move, but the world tilted anyway. The fog became weight. The light went to water. I braced on the rail and tried to gather my breath from the steps. "James," I said, and it came out a whisper. "Aye." The gate latch clicked. We both turned. She stood there again, the tote on her arm, like the universe had rewound itself to test our balance. "I'm sorry," she said to the space between us. "The pan I grabbed was the wrong one." She took a step onto the porch, then another, and her gaze caught what the fog hadn't hid her distance too small, our chests too loud, the way the porch light loved both our faces the same. She didn't look at me first. She looked at him. "James," she said, careful, "what am I seeing?" He opened his mouth and nothing came out. For a second I saw him choose 10 different lives and reject them all. Then he set his jaw. "You're seeing me be honest," he said. I should have been sooner. The words hit the porch like glass. She blinked once, twice, as if clearing a lens. Honest about what? Everything I should have said ran to the back of my throat and hid. He moved first. "I have feelings for him," he said. No flourish, no softening. The sentence landed in the world and refused to be unspoken. Her face changed in tiny, devastating way-size tightening, mouth shaking and then setting calm. She nodded once like Shed walked into cold water and knew she had to swim to shore. "Do you love him?" she asked. "Or do you love the idea that someone still looks at you like you're not tired?" His breath hitched. He didn't get to answer. The front door opened. Dad stepped out with his phone still in his hand, and the easy smile men wear when nothing terrible has happened yet. "Hey," he said, "you come back for round 2. The silence that followed carved a trench. He read our faces, then the geometry. Oh, we were standing, what hadn't been said. I watched the moment trust left his eyes. He lowered the phone like it weighed 100 pounds. "Explain," he said to James, voice flat. James didn't move. "Mike, explain," Dad said again, the words splitting into 2 syllables, explain, like a thing that used to fly. I stepped forward and found my voice stuck between wanting to protect him and wanting not to lie. "It's not Daunt," Dad said, holding up a hand without looking at me. "If there's a story, he tells it." James looked at me once, a flash of 1,000 talks and 3 decades of friendship sitting on his shoulders. Then he did the worst and kindest thing in the same breath. "This is on me," he said to my father. "Not him. I crossed the line. He didn't ask me to. He tried to push me back." The betrayal arrived soft, then hard. It landed as protection and still cut. To Dad it sounded like loyalty. To me it sounded like erasing what I had chosen, what I had wanted, what I had been brave enough to admit on a porch that kept secrets poorly. My father's face went gray around the edges. He opened his mouth, closed it, then laughed once in a way that wasn't laughter. "You," he said, "my best friend." "I'm sorry," James said, and I knew he meant it for 1,000 versions of the same mistake. Dad's eyes slid to me. "Is that true?" he asked. "He put you in this." I could have grabbed the lifeline head thrown. Let it be mess sin and my innocence. My mouth wouldn't shape the lie. "No," I said, and the word felt like stepping off a ledge. I wasn't pushed. The 3 of us stood in the triangle of porch light and fog. The neighborhood, merciful, had gone quieter still. Somewhere a dog barked like a metronome for a heartbeat too fast. Dad put a hand on the rail to steady himself. "Get off my porch," he said to James without looking at him. "Before I say something I can't take back, Kyle," James said to me, using my name like a hand he couldn't hold, "I go." I said, "Because staying would kill us in front of the man who taught me to ride a bike." He went. He didn't argue. He disappeared into the fog like a scene ending mid-frame. My father and I stayed, not looking at each other. His breath came rough. Mine came quieter, then not at all for a second, the way it does just before a sob. I swallowed it. "You could have told me," he said finally. "I didn't know how," I said. "Neither do I," he said, and the sentence cut more cleanly than a shout. Behind us, the house waited with every picture still hanging straight. In my pocket, my phone buzzed once. I meant it. "I love you. I'm sorry." Out loud, to air that felt like broken glass, I said, "Me too." The fog around the yard thickened and then thinned. The bowl on the step held 3 candies, like a joke we hadn't earned. I stood with my father until the porch light timed out and darkness made us both just outlines, men who didn't know the next line. Morning arrived without asking. I sat on the back steps, hoodie zipped to the throat, watching breath turn to smoke. Inside, the house held its silence like a grudge. Dad moved somewhere above me, footsteps careful, every board creak a question neither of us had words for. My phone lay heavy in my pocket. No new messages, only the last one from James. I meant it. "I love you." "I'm sorry," I hadn't replied. The neighborhood wore its post, hallow. We'd hangover paper ghosts limp on fences, candy wrappers shining in wet grass. Life, pretending nothing had happened, but something had, and it lived in me like a second heartbeat. Dad appeared at the door, coffee mug in hand. He didn't step outside. "Going back to school tomorrow?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. A pause stretched, thin as wire. "You're still my son," he said quietly. "That change, I know." My voice cracked on the second word. He nodded once and closed the door, leaving the space between us filled with everything unsaid. I finally opened the message thread and typed "Where are you?" Then deleted it. The urge to chase him felt like holding Firebright. Dangerous, impossible to keep. From the street came a sound, tires on wet pavement. A dark truck slowed near the corner. Jing, mess truck. He didn't stop. He didn't even glance toward the house, just kept driving, taillights fading into the gray morning until they were nothing. I sat there until the cold numbed my fingers, the echo of that engine sliding through me. Maybe he was heading home. Maybe nowhere. Maybe to a life that still expected him to stay. When the sky finally brightened, I stood and brushed damp leaves from the step. The yard looked ordinary again, but the air carried a charge I couldn't name. I went inside, the door clicking shut like the end of a scene, knowing the story wasn't over, endly hidden, waiting, a secret that would keep breathing long after we stopped.